Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, as most people will be aware, I was away in Thailand with Ajahn Amaro for about 3 weeks, and returned here to Amaravati 2 or 3 days ago, on the 4th. So, in Thailand it's about 2:30 in the morning, 2:45 in the morning, so a little bit bleary, I must admit. Not quite adjusted to the time zone as yet, but though it was a very full visit, it was a fairly densely packed schedule. So the first week I was in Ubon province in the northeast, visiting Wat Ba Nanacha, the International Forest Monastery, to spend time with the community there, also to go and pay respects to a number of the local senior ajahns, so to particularly go to Wat Ba Pong, the main monastery, and pay our respects at the Chedi, where the relics of Luang Por Chah are kept, the stupa at the main monastery, and to see Luang Por Liam, who's the abbot there, also to visit various other local ajahns in the area. And during that time, I also went to visit, took a day, a side trip from Ubon, which is sort of due east of Bangkok. I took a day to visit Noi Thompson, Kunying Noi, who's up in Chiang Mai. She's very close to the end of her life, has advanced bowel cancer, and which is spread to other parts of her body, so the family has gathered around her. She's been a very dedicated Dhamma practitioner, done dozens of retreats here at Amaravati, and has been a very ardent supporter of our communities, Chithurst Monastery, Amaravati, and the Dhamma School, and many ways she's helped and supported our community for a long, long time. She's 90 years old now, and coming to the end of her days. So I took a trip up to visit her, spend time with her and her family, to wish her well and offer my blessings at the end of her life. Then coming back to Ubon, finished the time there, and then went with Ajahn Kongrit and a few other Sangha members up to Chiang Rai province, which is even further north, near the border with Myanmar, about 10 kilometers from the border with Myanmar, and also close to the Lao border. It's up in the Golden Triangle area of Thailand, and that's where we held a 10-day meditation retreat for about 60 lay people. And Sangha members that were there, Tan Pasado, who was people will know from here, Amaravati, Tan Dipako also was ordained here. And they were good to reconnect with them, and then various other Sangha members from Wat Ba Nanachat, and also a very newly minted bhikkhu, Bhikkhu Sujito, not Ajahn Sujito, this another Sujito, who had been helping out with the foreign language program at the Ajahn Buddhadasa Center in Bangkok. He's now taken temporary ordination, so we had a good Sangha presence there. It's up in the hills in the north of Thailand. As I was saying, it's quite beautiful, rugged countryside around there, very forested, very green hills covered in orchards and forest land. So there's no sound of roads or even aeroplanes going overhead, just the sounds of the birds and the insects and the thunder and lightning of the summer storms. And that was a very good opportunity. It's been 2.5 years since I was last in Thailand, and I've tried to go a couple of times a year to maintain the connection with our community over there and keep that sense of relatedness with our sort of home base in northeast Thailand. And also for the many people in Thailand who are very dedicated practitioners, students of Luang Por Chah, Luang Por Sumedho and Amaravati. And so it was a good opportunity to have a 10-day retreat and to give the first chance for a face-to-face retreat in Thailand. People have done a lot of Zoom-based retreats and Dhamma events of one kind or another for a long time, but it was very refreshing and so delightful to be able to be in a room together, like a large Dhamma hall that they have at this. It's a resort, but it's in a way it's structured more like a retreat center than a regular resort. It's very much very much what you need for a retreat environment. Very good accommodation, very simple. Everything's built out of bamboo, and but it has a good power supply for fans and air conditioning, which is much appreciated in Thailand in June. Even up in the north, in the hills, it's still hot and sticky. Yeah. So that was the next 10 days. Was there in Chiang Rai province at that Puchai Sai resort. Also, I should mention that the owner of the resort, Mom Sudawadi, who happens to be an aunt of Ajahn Siripanyo, she was determined to keep the resort going, even in COVID, with no guests, no regular visitors coming. She was determined to keep it alive and keep it functioning, so that we could host another retreat there. And so she said she was selling off various bits of property, cashing in various assets just to keep the place going, so we could come back and have a retreat there. Which I was very, very touched by. That she was more inclined to have the place used as a meditation retreat center than as a regular resort. So it was very delightful. I felt a lot of mudita for her happiness that we came back there and had this retreat. Her husband had passed away recently, a few months before, and so we had his picture up on the shrine and dedicated the blessings and merit of the retreat for him. And she took us to the place where he's buried. She said he wanted to be out in the hills, and so she chose a spot near the center of their property where there's a little sort of coffee shop, and she made a garden, planted 2,000 roses, and put his body in the ground there. She said that she's booked a place for herself next to him. So it was very, very good to see how someone who's very sort of high-ranking member of Thai society, she's a princess, a mom, but chooses to live extremely simply and has a very uncomplicated life, living far away from the city and close to the country. Was very dedicated also to providing employment and support for local villagers and people who are struggling with COVID and the downturn of the economy. So really delightful to be around such a good-hearted person and have an environment like that to hold a retreat in. It wasn't just a set of buildings to park ourselves in, but it was very much a place sustained by generosity, wholesomeness, kindness that we were able to use. So that had its very positive effect. Following the 10-day retreat, then we were in Bangkok for a week. even though it was only a 3-week visit to Thailand, beginning to end, it felt like a couple of months. It was all fairly densely packed. I don't think a single day passed without me giving a Dhamma talk, one way or another. So I've done a lot of, even for me, I've done a lot of talking in the last 3 weeks. So at Bangkok, we had a number of invitations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ajahn Buddhadasa Center, the Buddhadasa Indapanyo Archive, also with Satien Dhammasatan, Mechi Sansani, who's been a very good friend and associate of this community. She has established a very wonderful center in Bangkok, Satien Dhammasatan, which is very much a training place for nuns and very much a focus for particularly for women's meditation and Dhamma practice in Bangkok. She passed away from cancer a few months ago in early December, so that her passing is a very strong presence there at Satien Dhammasatan. She also established this place called Bodhisattva Valley. She's been emphasizing Sri Aryatara, one of the deities, bodhisattvas from the Tibetan tradition. She's sort of introduced that into the Thai spiritual pool, and so Bodhisattva Valley, down a couple of hours drive south of Bangkok. It's a very good example of how much you can develop a place when you don't have planning laws. So in the space of 2 years, she first visited the property 4 years ago. They took possession 2 years ago, and it's already they've got something like 15 or 20 buildings. They've put in ponds and huge shrines and extraordinary amount of development. Moved in large, fully grown trees they planted. It was a pineapple plantation before they got there, but it's already transformed into a kind of Amaravati size Dhamma center. So it's not that I'm resenting the planning laws that we have here in England. I think they do a great job of protecting the environment and helping to make sure everything is built in a very wholesome and sustainable way, and that it's not going to fall apart because of being badly built. But it was amazing, the energy and focus and creativity that's gone into creating such a place just in the space of 2 years. So it was very delightful for us to be able to go down there. Tan Dipako and also Tan Not, a Thai monk, was on the retreat. He also was traveling with us for all of these events. There was about 20 nuns, 28 precept nuns living at Bodhisattva Valley, and about another, say 20 or 30 living at Satien Dhammasatan, the main center in Bangkok. And then I think the last talks we gave were at the Maya Gotami Foundation and the Angel Group. So I've probably forgotten one or two, so forgive me if there's one or two fallen off the list. As I said, it's about 3 a.m. there in Thailand, and my memory faculties are not as sharp as they can be at the moment. So it was a very rich and well organized visit. Everything went very smoothly. I also had 2 days of physical checkups, being thoroughly scanned and checked and measured and cameraed in all possible ways, and my eyes as well, so that people can rest assured that my medical checkup was that everything's pretty much in the state of good health. Should lower my salt intake and cholesterol, but apart from that, everything is A-OK as far as the reports go. One of the aspects of our time, particularly in Ubon, visiting the senior monks and also seeing the picture of Luang Por Kham up on the shrine here, we went to visit Luang Por Kham's monastery. He passed away recently as well, and paid respects to his body and to spend time there, a little time there at his monastery, Wat Thai Patana, and visiting Luang Por Anek. He's still alive, but his health is waning. He can't sit on the floor anymore. He has to sit on a chair, and his He's very adept on his electric scooter, going around his monastery, Wat Pa Saingam. Lumpur Liam is still very active, but definitely having to slow down. He's now well into his 80s, and that sense of aging and the heavenly messengers, going to visit Kunying Noi Thompson. There's a profound and very clear message of fragility of life and the ending of life, and also we have the body of Manjula's mother here in the Chapel of Rest at the moment, and the message is there, and just people that I've known, particularly the elder Ajahns who are sort of senior figures in the community, just seeing the faculties sort of waning and decaying. Lumpur Kham was a real bright light, a really sharp-witted monk. He was the kind of monk who would crack jokes in the local dialect that you couldn't. He spoke so quickly and so, in such a sort of accent, you couldn't catch what he said, but everyone would crack up. All the people who spoke the Isan dialect would kind of crack up at his sort of witty remark. You think, what did he say? I missed another one. So yeah, such a live wire. But then the live wire, when the power supply goes, and then that's the end. So we have the memory, we have the body. One of the talks I was invited to give, the talk at BIA, was on the theme of seeing with the eye of Dhamma, which is the title of a book of teachings by Ajahn Buddhadasa that's been compiled. It's a translation of a very popular book of his in the Thai language, and that seeing with the eye of Dhamma and looking at the process of our life, our world, our field of experience with the eye of Dhamma, this and particularly when what is seen is the heavenly messengers, so much in the way of aging and death. Mom Sudawadi's husband, Noi Thompson, Lumpur Kham, Lumpur Anek, Lumpur Liam, these very fine people have been living very dedicated lives and very committed to Dhamma practice. Those lives coming to an end and or having ended, to see that with the eye of Dhamma and to listen to the messages of the heavenly messengers, and then to apply those messages to our own lives is very important. Also, this tragic death of this lady in America who was shot by in the tragic mass shooting in Independence Day parade in Chicago, bullet to the heart, suddenly ending her life just like that, very, very, very quickly. The message that we get from the heavenly messengers, from aging, sickness, and death, is the fourth messenger is that of the religious seeker, the samana, the encouragement to see with the eye of Dhamma. One of the things considering this and reflecting on it, that seeing with the eye of Dhamma, and also seeing the aging process of many of these beloved and respected Ajahns in Thailand, it reminded me of when I went to visit Thailand in 1988. So at that time, Lumpur Cha had been paralyzed for about 4 or 5 years. He lived for 10 years after he had a stroke and was unable to speak, unable to move, and was paralyzed for that time. So he'd already been in that kind of a state for 4 or 5 years when I had the chance to go back and visit Thailand. And I remember going to see him at Wat Bapong. The group of the Sangha members went over from what Bhajanana chant. Just nearby, they would go over every week to chant Paritta and dedicate blessings and good wishes for him. And then seeing Ajahn Chah, he would be sitting up in the wheelchair, quite paralyzed, with his mouth sort of open and his cheeks sunk in, and there's quite a sort of a tragic picture in many ways. And so it was quite startling to see him again, like Luang Por Kham, or even more than Luang Por Kham. He'd been very, very lively and engaged, and kind of incredible sparkling wit and quality of engagement and wisdom, and the kind of loving and caring attunement to teaching people, to the time, the place, the situation he was in, extraordinary energy and liveliness, and then sort of sitting there in a chair, like Luang Por Sumedho said quite a number of times, just like a sack of potatoes, just sitting there, so sort of inert and lifeless and breathing, but very kind of shocking and startling to see Luang Por Chah in that kind of a state. And I remember being there and seeing him like that in the room, sitting in the wheelchair, and this sense of shock and sadness. Then what happened, as I remember, was that strangely enough, a quote from the Bible came to mind, because I used to do quite a lot of acting when I was a child and when I was a teenager. The very last role I played in a theatrical mode was Jesus. And it was a play called "The Man Born to Be King." And there's a quote from one of the Gospels which says, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, weep for yourselves." And so I was standing there looking at the Luang Por Chah, thinking, "Oh my goodness, it was so sad. He's so wrecked, so lifeless." And then I got this very strong sense of, "Don't weep for me, kiddo." You're the one that's in trouble. I'm fine. This might look pretty awful from the outside, but I'm fine. It's you're the one who's still got a lot of work to do. You're the one in trouble. Don't weep for me. Weep for yourself. So that was an interesting insight, sort of via the Gospel of Luke, and the Man Born to Be King, that play. But that's what came to mind. It's like from the outside, the worldly eye, it looked like, oh, this person's life is really wrecked. They've lost everything that's good, and there's just this all that's left of this life is this body that's still breathing and still the heart is still beating, but their life is this person's life has waned, has faded, has lost its value. From the worldly perspective, and then, oh, how sad, how tragic that someone who is so alive, so vital, has lost all of that. But this, in a sense, that the Eye of Dhamma perspective, where it's like and again, I realized I was probably projecting into Ajahn Chah, but that was the intuition or the insight that arose at that time was that you don't weep for me. I'm fine. But from the inside, and this is also corroborated by other people who had abilities to sense what was going on in other people's minds. A couple of different folks who'd visited Ajahn Chah said, "Oh yeah, he's really fine. Don't worry about him. He's spending most of his time in a profound samadhi, the arahat samadhi. He's not really bothered by the discomfort of the body. His mind is absorbed in a very sort of peaceful, bright, quiet state. So he really is fine." But that sense of we might be healthy, we might have our faculties, we might be able to move around and see and hear and smell and taste and touch, but it's those of us, like the daughters of Jerusalem, that Jesus was on his way to his crucifixion, and so the women of Jerusalem were weeping for him, but he said, "Don't weep for me, weep for yourselves," because to use that comparison, it's those of us, we might have our faculties, we might be able to walk around and move and talk and see and smell and taste and touch, with more agency, more personal will being able to be applied to our lives, but we've still got work to do. The mind is still under the influence of greed, hatred, delusion, that there's still a lot of spiritual work to be done. So you're the one who's still got the work to do. You're still subject to dukkha. So if you're going to weep for yourself. Don't weep for me. And so that was a very powerful insight at the time, and that's what came to mind in relationship to visiting the Ajahns and meeting those heavenly messengers along the way through this visit. Seeing with the eye of Dhamma, it's a way of referring to stream entry in many aspects of the teaching, like in the Dhammacakka Sutta that we chanted this evening. This is described there with Kandanya as he's listening to the Buddha giving this teaching. Dhamma chakung udapadi, the eye of Dhamma arose. And when the eye of Dhamma arose in Kandanya, as it's described in that sutta, what the eye of Dhamma sees, what is known by that sort of quality of vision or wisdom, is yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabantang nirodha dhammanti. Whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. So on a worldly level, on a conceptual level, that's not very dramatic, or whatever arises passes away. A 4-year-old can understand that as a concept. What goes up must come down. What begins ends. That's not particularly sort of fresh information in some respects. But why it's the liberating insight, why it constitutes the opening of the eye of Dhamma, or the seeing of the deathless, is that the full implications of that realization is what is sinking into the heart. That's what's really appreciated in that change, that change of vision. It's like everything that arises passes away. So that if that's really acknowledged, if that the full implications of that are taken to heart, then that radically changes the way that the world is seen, the world of our body, our minds, the physical world around us, the people, the things around us, that the mind recognizes that there is no thing that can possibly be owned or that can permanently please or be possessed. There's no thing that is precious or delightful that can be kept. There's no thing that's dangerous or painful that can stay forever. That naturally, every aspect of the world and the experience of the world is in a state of change. And so when the full implications of that are taken to heart, then there's a change of view, a change of perspective. And what is called the gotrabu, the change of lineage, is what takes place with that shift. One of the ways that the Buddha talked about the effects of that change of perspective, is he one particular occasion he reached down and scratched the ground in front of him and held up his finger and said, "What do you think? Is the amount of earth, the dirt under my fingernail, and the great earth. Which of these two is the greater? Which is the larger amount? The dirt under my fingernail, or the great earth itself? And the monks who were gathered there naturally said, "Venerable Sir, the amount of dirt under your fingernail is very, very small. The great earth is very, very large." So the Buddha then said, so the amount of suffering that one who has made the breakthrough, who has realized that change of lineage, the amount of suffering that they can expect to experience is comparable to the dirt under my fingernail, the earth under my fingernail. The amount of suffering one who has not made the breakthrough, who hasn't realized that change of lineage, can expect to experience is comparable to the great earth, the whole planet itself. So the Buddha was supremely gifted in coming up with these very memorable images and helpful similes, so that he's saying it makes a big difference, that change of perspective, seeing with the eye of Dhamma, making this change of view. It makes a big difference. There's a massive contrast in the way that the world is seen and known if that change of perspective is genuinely established in the heart. It's called the change of lineage because with that insight that all that arises passes away and is not self, even though it doesn't sound like much, if that really is taken to heart, then it's recognized that the body, this body that we call who and what we are, this is in a constant state of change. That we're breathing in, breathing out. We're ingesting food and water and excreting, every day. This body is in a constant state of change. So rupang anatta, the body is not self. It's not who and what we are. So that we might identify with the body and think of our lineages as our physical parents, our biological parents. But if there's this realization that the body is not self, then what is the origin of what we are, what is real? So it's called a change of lineage, that gotra, because it's recognizing that from the worldly perspective, our lineage is our biological parents, whether we know them or not, or whether we have fond relationships with them or not. That's where these bodies have all come from a father and a mother. That's where these bodies have come from. But if the body is not self, then what is our gotra? What is our lineage? Our source? And so that it's recognizing that the source of this reality is Dhamma itself. That's the change of lineages from the identifying with a biological background and ancestry to the spiritual ancestry of Dhamma itself. When that quality of vision is established, then it has a radical effect on the way that we see our own body, our own personality, and the way that we see the world around us. That is has a profound and liberating quality. So when Kondanya understood what the Buddha was saying, then the Buddha was delighted and called out Anyasi Watabo Kondanya. Kondanya understands. Kondanya understands. So from that time onwards, he was known as Anya Kondanya, Kondanya who understands. And so the Buddha was delighted to see that there was people can understand this teaching. They can awaken to this reality and can be benefited by that. They can realize a quality of a profound insight. So that was Kondanya reached the level of stream entry in that Dhamma talk. The other four companions, the other four wanderers and friends of the Buddha hadn't quite reached that point at that time. But then when he gave the next teaching, the Anattalakkana Sutta, the discourse on not self, which was traditionally given on the full moon of July. So next week we'll be on Asala Puja, we'll be reciting that the Anattalakkana Sutta. And as far as I remember, that's what it's associated with. And Oh, I've got that wrong. It is very early in the morning. So Asala Puja was when the Buddha gave the Dhammacakka Sutta, but then after that, subsequent to that, he gave the Anattalakkhana Sutta, and then it was when he gave that teaching about the insight into not self that then all five of them, all five of his companions became arahants. So I feel it's very helpful for us to consider and to say, take to heart these principles, to recognize it is possible for the eye of Dhamma to be opened, for the Dhammacakku, the eye of Dhamma, to open, to arise. That's a potential that every single one of us has, and that's the purpose of monastic life, the purpose of entering into Dhamma practice, the purpose of a place like Amaravati. It's called the deathless realm. It's not because when you come in the gate you automatically realize the deathless. It's a place where the deathless can be. The conditions are ideal for that, the deathless to be realized. It does take work and effort for the eye of Dhamma to be opened, but I would say that a place like this is established precisely for this purpose. Whether we're a layperson here for a day or two, or whether we're here as a layperson for a year or two, or we're here in monastic training in the 8 precepts and 10 precepts, and the whatever form we are practicing in, that these are really ideal conditions for this quality of insight to be brought into being. And that's what the purpose of all these precepts and the structures that we have, the routines, the teachings that we follow, the different meditation practices that are carried out and are used here and described and explained here. All of this is to help these the hearts and minds of those of us who gather here to awaken to this reality, to the nature of the way things are. That's what this is all for. And so that in this this place of awakening, this place to realize the deathless, then the nature of the work is helpful to clarify what needs to happen, what needs to be done in terms of the effort that needs to be made in order for the eye of Dhamma to open and for that radical change of view, that change of lineage to be actualized. So the 3 qualities which constitute the obstacles, the things that get in the way of that insight, in terms of the Buddha's teaching as we have inherited it in this southern Buddhist tradition, the first 3 of the 10 fetters, the 3 qualities that are the kind of shackles or the chains, the things that bind the heart down, are self-view, doubt, and attachment to conventions. So those 3 are the areas of attachment, identification, grasping. These 3 samyojana. These need to be we need to get to know them, need to know what they are, how they work, and then to use the capacity that we have, the life energy, the kind of the faith, sense of resolution, commitment, and the effort to work on these areas where the heart gets entangled, where it gets caught up and attached and identified. Speaking in this way, I'm also hesitant because it's very easy for spiritual effort to get hijacked by self-view and conceit, and so that I want to be a stream enterer, I want to open the eye of Dhamma, I want to get beyond all this dukkha. I want to be enlightened. I've got to get rid of my defilements. I've got to train my mind. I've got to become a Sotapanna. So there's a lot of I've got to become, I want to be, I've got to get rid of. So the mind can easily get hijacked by those habits of the desire to become, the desire to get rid of, and that if this effort say engaging in spiritual work does get sort of co-opted, taken over by this insidious virus of bhavatanha vibhavatanha, the rather like the exceptionally effective COVID virus that easily gets everywhere, the avijja, the ignorance virus that sort of slips into the system and makes the effort that is necessary and useful, again, it takes that over, it infects that with self-view, with conceit, and so then the sincere and dedicated efforts that are made to awaken, to do what is necessary for the eye of Dhamma to open, that if that gets co-opted, taken over by conceit and self-view, then it just creates more of an obstacle. The very first of those 10 fetters is sakkaya ditthi, self-view. So if it's, I've got a lot of defilements, I need to get rid of them, I want to become a stream enterer, I've got to work harder, I've got to be more sincere, that's all sakkaya ditthi. It's all self-view has sort of taken over the liberation program, so that it actually just makes that very first of the 10 fetters even stronger. So it's ironic and tragic that things work in this way. So one of the things I like to emphasize over and over and over is the importance of effort in spiritual practice, in the training, effort to be guided and energized by mindfulness and wisdom, by satipanya, and not by me, not by me and mine, not by the habits of self-view, and I-making and mind-making. And so part of this, say the work that we're engaged in, or the purpose that we all gather here for, whether we're a siladhara or a bhikkhu or a samanera or a anagarika layperson, short-term, long-term, whatever we might be, that we discern the difference between effort being guided by mindfulness and wisdom, when practicing Dhamma really in accordance with Dhamma, and what it's like for effort to be driven by self-view, by the I-making and mind-making habits. If that can be recognized and let go of, then the efforts that are made can be genuinely, say, supportive and helpful in bringing about that change of view, that change of lineage. Oh, self-view, sakkaya ditthi, Lumpur Sumedho would, I feel, very helpfully summarize that as it's the view, the attitude, I am the body, I am the personality, I am a woman, I am a man, I am 65 years old, I am 20, I am 30, I am 50, I am 80. This is my name, I am Ajahn Amaro, this is my story, I am British or I am American. All those I ams, the mind that takes those to be absolutely true is the mind that is invested in self-view. And to let go of self-view, let go of that habit of I'm the body, I'm the personality, I am this personal story, is recognizing that those ways of speaking, they can only be convenient fictions. They can't be an absolute truth. That we're not absolutely male or female or old or young. We don't. Nationality is a convention. This place used to be in Bedfordshire. They moved the county boundary. It's now Hertfordshire. Where are we? A few centuries ago, this was the Kingdom of Essex, which was separate from the kingdoms of Kent and East Anglia, and it was a whole separate kingdom. And before that, there were no defined boundaries. It was just individual villages and tribes just camped out on the ground and moving around. So where are we? the conventions of our personality, our name, our age, our nationality, our gender, our personal history, our successes, our failures, they seem so real, so solid, so substantial. So this very first of the 10 fetters, the 10 samyojana, it takes concerted and focused effort in meditation, particularly developing insight, vipassana meditation, to challenge those habits of thinking, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I am tall, I'm short, I'm old, I'm young, I'm a success, I'm a failure, I'm happy, I'm unhappy, I'm healthy, I'm sick, and everything in between. Vipassana meditation and the development of wisdom is structured precisely to challenge those assumptions and to see that these can only be half-truths or conventional truths. They can't be anything absolute. These are just, ways of talking about this particular set of experiences, and that they can't be an absolute reality. The second of the 10 fetters is doubt, vicikicca. In this respect, it's not just doubt about, like if you're on the cooking roster, what should we cook tomorrow, or what time am I supposed to meet with this person? I have to go and check the calendar. It's not that kind of a doubt. It's very specific. It's a much narrower and particular kind of doubt. It's doubt as to what is the path and what is not the path to enlightenment. That is the specific doubt that is referred to in that the doubt of the second fetter. The what is the path, what is not the path, and so that letting go of self-view is the first of the tasks involved in this whole process. The second is being certain about what needs to be done. What is the path, and that, in a sense, it's that insight that's expressed in the Dhammacakka Sutta that I was quoting earlier. Yankinchi samudaya dhammang sabantang nirodha dhammanti. The path, I would suggest, is that recognition that everything is in a state of change, and that even to use the word thing is an approximation. There aren't really any things. There are events. There are patterns of experience come together and are formed into temple or into human body and person. But these are not permanent solid things. We could say, there's a microphone or clock or chair. But this was an oak tree or several oak trees that were growing somewhere, and then the oak trees were cut down and then turned into planks, and then somebody commissioned a Dhamma seat to be made in this particular form, and the oak was put together, and it's now a Dhamma seat. It'll be a Dhamma seat for a number of years, and then it'll change and end up probably being firewood or a chicken roost, or and it'll transform into other aspects of the earth, water, fire, and air elements. So that recognizing that everything is in a state of change, whatever arises passes away. I would say that's one of the succinct ways, the clear and direct ways of summarizing what is the path. The more that way of seeing is established in the heart, and the effects of that seeing are realize that the path is to know that no thing can be owned. There is no thing that we are. There's no thing that is reliable, dependable. There's no thing that can provide permanent satisfaction. When that is, those qualities are fully recognized, then it's recognized, that the result of that recognition is peacefulness, freedom, ease, and a sense of delight and spaciousness of the heart. And seeing that, knowing that, that is That indicates this is the path, this is the way forward, is to keep developing that insight, to keep deepening and strengthening that understanding, that way of seeing, and letting the implications of that truth sink more and more deeply, more and more fully into the heart until it influences every aspect of the moment-to-moment experience. The third of these first three fetters is Silabbata Paramasa, or attachment to conventions. Technically, it refers particularly to religious conventions, like what's the correct way to bow, the belief that bathing in the river Ganges will clear away your bad karma, or that if you've been baptized by a priest with some water or some oil, then you are belong to this particular religion, or you're born to a particular set of parents, and so you are part of that particular religion. So that's one aspect of Silabbata Paramasa, the attachment to conventions. Luang Por Chah would always emphasize that it's much broader than just religious conventions and agreements, but the conventions that we have in society about what's the right way to eat, what's the right way to dress, what's appropriate to a particular situation. These are human agreements that we take to be absolute facts. Like, oh no, that's not the right way to eat. You shouldn't eat like that. You should eat like this. You do this with your right hand, not your left hand. This is your sets of conventions and standards that societies bring up, but they are and can only be human agreements. On a shrine we have the Buddha images in the highest place, and the flowers and the candles are to one side and are lower down. If you set up a shrine with the Buddha image down below and the flowers on top, then according to the standard way of arranging shrines, then that's wrong. It shouldn't be that way. But each thing is just what it is. Like the flowers are the flowers, the Buddha Rupa is a Buddha Rupa. It's not intrinsically and absolutely wrong for the Buddha Rupa to be lower than the flowers. It's just according to our customs in the Buddhist tradition, that's not the way you arrange it. It's a convention. And that when the mind sees, oh, that's wrong, it shouldn't be there, that's the wrong thing, it's the wrong way around, that the mind that can recognize, oh, well, that's wrong according to the convention, but in itself it's just rupa kanda, it's just the material form arranged in a particular pattern, that's it. It's the mind that adds the wrongness. That's always going to be the case. So Silabbata Paramasa is the third of those first three fetters, and that the more that we can use our practice, use our capacity for wise reflection and investigation of Dhamma, Dhamma Vichaya, Yoniso Manasikara, this ability of the mind to investigate, to look at the habits of thinking, the habits of attitude, the things that we tend to believe, and what triggers like and dislike, approval, disapproval within us. We can explore these different areas of self, how self-view gets formed and sustained, and how that can be let go of. Where the mind is in doubt, how to recognize what is the path to genuine freedom and peace and ease, and what is not the path, and seeing the habits of attachment to conventions. We can use our energy, our human life, our abilities to see and to know, to consider, to look at these areas of attachment, entanglement, and challenge them. Use the practice, use our faculties to recognize what is obstructing the eye of Dhamma, what is keeping that eye closed, and looking at those obstacles, looking at those fetters, those entanglements, looking at them, knowing them, challenging them, using our life here and using this wonderful environment that we have here at Amaravati the support of each other to encourage that work. And then as we get to know those areas and use our faculties to explore and to let go of those fetters, those obstacles, then we can experience the results of changing that vision, changing the perspective, and even if it's just for a moment here and there, when insight arises, then there's a taste of that change of lineage, that change of view, that different way of seeing, that moment when the heart recognizes, oh, how could this have an owner? How could this body be mine? Like it's like owning a cloud or a star. It's like owning? How could he own a star or own a cloud? Or how can anything be owned? And what is there to do any owning? Oh, of course. And maybe that's just for a second or half a second. But notice those moments. Notice the quality, how the heart is in those moments of clarity. Notice that, feel that, let that be fully conscious. And then that contributes to pointing out, this is the path, this is the way forward to keep strengthening that insight into anicca, dukkha, anatta, and then the way becomes more and more clear, and the energy, the interest, the dedication to keep following that for the benefit of this being and for the benefit of all beings. So I offer these thoughts for consideration this evening.